Welcome to Ruby Falls at Lookout Mountain. I'm Chris, and I'll be your tour guide as we travel deep inside a mountain to check out the amazing Ruby Falls right here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Our first stop will be the main visitor center and gift shop. This is where you can purchase tickets for a tour of the caverns. However, it is recommended to book ahead of time over on their website, as tours do fill up fast, especially during peak season. While in the gift shop, make sure to pick up a souvenir to remember your trip to the Ruby Falls and Lookout Mountain. They have lots to choose from, including magnets, mugs, t-shirts, and even gemstones. Their gift shop was awesome. It was large, spacious, and had a good selection of things to purchase. I ended up getting a magnet as well as a pin to remember my trip to Ruby Falls and Lookout Mountain. Once you've got your tickets and browsed through the gift shop, you'll head over to where it says Cave Tours. This is where your journey will begin. You'll meet your tour guide and head into the elevator to descend 260 feet into the cave. Now that we've made it to the entrance of the cave, I'd like to go over a few rules and safety guidelines. First of all, watch your head. Sometimes the ceiling of the cave gets a little low and you wouldn't want to go banging your head on it. That would hurt quite a bit. Second of all, in some spots, the cave floor isn't exactly flat, so be careful where you step because you might end up tripping. And of course, the final rule is never, ever touch anything in the cave. We'd rather have you fall down on the ground than use one of the formations to catch yourself. When you touch the cave walls, and especially the stalactites and stalagmites, these are the formations that are all throughout the cave, the oils from your skin get all over them and prevent them from growing further, and that's a bummer for future generations that want to enjoy this cave. It'll also discolor them over time if tons of people keep touching them, so please keep your hands to yourself while in the cave. Now that we have all of that out of the way, we can begin our tour with the history of Lookout Mountain and Ruby Falls. During the turn of the century, Chattanooga was a rapidly growing city, and railway service would need to be expanded to meet the growing demand, so a new train tunnel was built through Lookout Mountain. Unfortunately, the new train tunnel would block access to the Lookout Mountain cave. This cave was first used by native people and later followed by visitors for meetings as well as a hospital and a shelter during the Civil War. It was also used for moonshine runners and thieves. Right around 1916, a man by the name of Leo Lambert would learn about the rich history and folklore of the Lookout Cave. He had just married his high school sweetheart, Ruby Lossie, and was determined to open the cave back up to the public. So Leo would begin a decades-long quest researching methods to gain access to the cave that had been long sealed off by the train tunnel. After Leo would receive $250,000 from investors, he would put his plan into motion and form the Lookout Cave Company. The first task would be to construct an elevator shaft that would descend 420 feet through the solid limestone. This elevator shaft would be used to gain access back to the Lookout Mountain cave. All the limestone that was excavated while building the elevator shaft was saved and used to build what was known as the most beautiful cave entrance in the world, a castle. Progress to reach the Lookout Mountain cave was very slow. They would work around the clock in shifts. The crew would remove 5 feet of limestone every 24 hours. Finally, after several hard weeks of work and at a depth of 260 feet, Lambert and his crew would hit a void. Immediately, they would feel the rush of cold air and know that they had found the cave. Not knowing exactly what they'd find, Lambert and a small group would crawl through the dark chasm. They would return 17 hours later after discovering flowing underground streams and incredible geological formations. But the most amazing discovery was the thundering waterfall that he would later go on to name Ruby Falls in honor of his wife. Now that the cave was rediscovered, Lambert would have a grand vision to reopen the place to the public. The first thing to be built would be the Ruby Falls Castle. Now, like I said earlier, it was built with all the limestone that was removed during the excavation of the elevator shaft. The castle would be finished in 1929, and the cave would later hold a grand opening ceremony in December of that year. Now, just because they were holding a grand opening ceremony didn't exactly mean that the cave was finally open to the public, because it wouldn't be until 6 months later in June of 1930 that Ruby Falls Cave would welcome its first visitors. Unfortunately, the cave would struggle at first because it would be opening during the height of the Great Depression while everyone around the nation was struggling. The Ruby Falls Castle would quickly become a popular social gathering hub, with a fashionable tea room by day and an upscale restaurant by night, accompanied by an orchestra and dinner dances. At the time, it was the largest ballroom in the city of Chattanooga. Now you have to remember, it's the 1930s during the Great Depression, so travel was considered a luxury, and the $2 guided cave tour price was out of reach for many families of the time. So in order to keep the Ruby Falls Cave going, they would use revenue from the restaurant as well as other social gatherings. This was crucial revenue that would help to keep Ruby Falls and the cave alive for future generations to enjoy. It's now the 1960s during the Cold War era when many people were thinking about doomsday and preparing for it. It was during this time period that the Ruby Falls Cave would take on a weird role as a designated civil defense fallout shelter. Several weeks' worth of food, water, and medical supplies would be stored deep within the cave in order to sustain 720 people. Due to the cave's unique location, it would make a perfect fallout shelter if there was ever a need for one. In 1985, Ruby Falls Cave, the waterfall, and the iconic Ruby Falls Castle would finally be recognized and placed on the National Register of Historic Places. In 2009, Ruby Falls would become the very first attraction in the United States to earn a Green Globe certification. This was to certify that Ruby Falls was a green, sustainable, and eco-friendly attraction. In 2018, Ruby Falls would have a large expansion. This would include a new venue and enhanced amenities that were designed to highlight the natural beauty of Lookout Mountain and the surrounding area. Having been constructed back in 1929, the Ruby Falls Castle was in desperate need of a renovation, and so in 2022, the castle would be restored and opened as the Castle Cafe. In 2023, Ruby Falls would celebrate its 95th anniversary, honoring the legacy of Leo Lambert's dream, because he had a vision of reopening a long-lost cave so that millions of people could enjoy it every year. Today, Ruby Falls continues to inspire those who journey deep into the mountain. Now that we've learned the history of Ruby Falls and the cave, I figured we should probably learn some facts about caves and caverns. So you'll recall that I mentioned stalactites and stalagmites earlier on in the video. These are the formations that you'd find in many caves and caverns throughout the world. So an easy way to remember which one is the stalactite and which one is the stalagmite is because the stalactite holds tight to the cave ceiling, and the stalagmite might reach the cave ceiling eventually. Now when both of these formations meet in the middle, they then form a column. Now, any of these columns that you might see in caves and caverns, they take millions and millions of years to form by slowly dripping water from the ceiling of the cave. So I've been using the term cave and cavern kind of interchangeably, and a lot of people do. But really, what is the difference between the two? So a cavern is a specific type of cave distinguished by its larger size and intricate formations. All caverns are caves, but not all caves can be caverns due to the fact that they're usually smaller and have less intricate formations. We've now reached the part of the tour that you've all been waiting for. Welcome to Ruby Falls. Located more than 1,120 feet beneath the surface of Lookout Mountain, Ruby Falls cascades down an impressive 145 feet. This is the tallest and deepest underground waterfall open to the public in the United States. Ruby Falls has been gracing its visitors ever since the cave opened for tours. Unfortunately, though, back then, we didn't have modern lighting like we do today, and so the waterfall was a lot harder to see, and of course it didn't light up all these awesome colors. It's very, very windy by the falls and very, very wet because we just had rain come through, so it's flowing tremendously. Oh, this is so cool. Now that we've seen the mighty splendor of Ruby Falls, it's time to head back the way that we came, up the elevator, and conclude our tour here at Ruby Falls. Now, before we head out and conclude this video, there is one other thing here at Ruby Falls that you'll want to check out before leaving, and that is the observation tower. And, of course, it is included with your admission. While visiting the observation tower, you'll be treated to some amazing panoramic views of the surrounding area as well as Chattanooga. Now, because I visited Ruby Falls later in the day just before they closed, I didn't have a whole lot of time to spend at the observation tower, and it was also getting dark. But it was really cool. We had a bunch of storms rolling through the area, and it was just cool to watch like the wall of water coming toward you. I want to thank you for joining me here as we took a tour of the Ruby Falls Cave and Waterfall here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. If you like this kind of content, you can check out the links that are on screen and in the description box below for member-exclusive content. A big shout out to all my members. Thank you for supporting the future of video. But that's going to do it for this episode, and I'll see you guys in the next one.